And it's Steve Tasker who has been all over the field.
Kind of unique. He was kind of a dual-role player for you.
Steve!
A balloon.
Steve! A blimp? We're not even in the stratosphere of normalcy here. All right, here we are on a Thursday. Team out on the practice field. Much lesser in numbers after roster cutdown day Tuesday. So,
guys.
First day of 53-man roster. Even coach getting some side shuffles in.
Yeah, I got a 16-man practice squad, though.
Got to work on the lateral work to get up and down the sideline on game day, man. Coach has got to get ready.
What he better do is start getting his hands ready to get clapped. You know, he got his hand.
Oh, he's doing that year round.
Right.
His hands are in really good shape.
Got good hand. Yeah. It's like a marathoner. He runs every day. Coach claps his hands every day.
Everybody's worried about getting their steps in. Coach is worried about getting his claps
Getting his claps in. I got 10,000 claps today.
Welcome to the show. Chris Brown, Steve Tasker with you. And bunch of stuff to discuss today. We do want to let you know, come the second hour of the show, about 55 or so minutes, well, probably about an hour from now, we'll have head coach Sean McDermott, who addressed the media this morning. Had a lot to discuss, and among them, the fact that competitions remain open in a couple of areas, most notably cornerback 2, offensive line, chiefly with the guards, and on the defensive line as well. He is not naming starters in any of those areas right now with, 10 days before the opener.
Well, he did reiterate as well that they compete every day. And we've said it, it's one of the part of it, what it makes this culture different is the fact that, and he said it today, even in his answer to the question, hey, these guys they know they've got to earn their spot every day. Unlike other places or years past in other places, it's true in Buffalo. These guys got to practice, they got to play, they got to prepare, or they don't play.
Mm-hmm.
And that means not just the guards or the second cornerback spot, but every spot. So he lives it, man. It's hard. I don't know how they do it. I mean, they evaluate these guys in an ongoing manner constantly. So, but I think it does say something about their roster management, their roster makeup, that even now they're telling they're saying, listen, I don't know who's going to be. I haven't set those guys yet. We still got decisions to be made. They got a long way to go. Well, 10 days, but it sounds like it's close, but it's not in an NFL timeline. 10 days is a lot, but they're going to get that done. And I am a little surprised.
Yeah, especially on the offensive line, I would say, only because I think just for everybody's psyche up there, not that anybody's got any kind of anxiety because they don't necessarily know who the starting five are because it hasn't been announced. I got to believe the guys up front are in the position where they're like, hey, we just want to know who we're going with.
Right.
And we'll take it from there. Knowing the personality of most offensive linemen, they're like, okay, well, just let us know when you know. But I think from a continuity standpoint and just from a mental psyche standpoint, like, all right, here's the horses we're riding with going into the season. Let's get going. And so absent that, I don't know. Maybe for the players it doesn't mean a hill of beans.
Well,
but
the guy that it should mean a hill of beans for is Josh. And
I mean publicly, he
Devin
will say
Singletary,
no, but,
the actual guys that play behind those guys. But I think it. And this too. Maybe this is the old guy in me coming out, and I'm sorry if it is, but don't you have competition? And if you don't really know who the guys are going to be, is that because you don't have the guys you want? You know what I mean?
Well,
it's like the old adage: if you got two quarterbacks, you don't have any. If you don't know who's going to play in the spot, you don't have the guys.
There might be an element of that. I think the greater factor at play here is coach wants guys earning it every single day, And this is the best way to push that all the way up to the regular season. And I asked Coach a question, which we'll hear later. As we said, we'll have Coach on about an hour from now. I wanted to know, where is the balance now, 10 days out from the season opener, in preparing for your opponent, the Pittsburgh Steelers, while also fine-tuning some things coming out of that last preseason game that you say to your coaching staff, hey, we got to work on this. Right. This is still not where it needs to be. For example, you heard Coach at halftime on your broadcast. Sloppy was a word that he used. He did not like the huddle to up to the line, to call the play, to snap the ball operation. He thought it got sloppy at times. They burned some timeouts. They also had some before the snap penalties, neutral zone infractions on defense. There were areas that he clearly had marked down, because we know he's a master note taker. He had stuff down on his to be fixed sheet. Yeah. There's stuff on his to-do list.
Yeah. Yeah, he's right, and he said it even today. There's room – all the stuff that didn't go perfectly in these preseason games, and there was a lot. They were 3-0. Hey, and it's you don't really even throw a party for it, but there was a lot of stuff in this preseason that they could grow from, and as he says, there's a lot of growth in there, and to be had. So they dissect it, and they talk to the guys who – and at that time, think about it. You had, 85 guys on the roster, and you're trying to help them do their best to make the club. So the coaches are telling them, hey, you got to do this, 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 and this, to make this club. Yeah. And you're only doing this. So you better do those other three things or else. And so they constantly are chattering to these players and giving them as much feedback as they can about what they want to see from them. That's what coaches do. It used to be, you go out there, you play, and the coach either says yes, thumbs up, or thumbs down. It's kind of like the old gladiator. Back in the old days, you just go out there and play, and you either get, yeah, you're on the team, and no, you're not. Now it's like, well, wait a minute. Now, if you do this, you're going to be playing a little better. And they coach these guys up, and then they say, listen, if you're going to make this team, you got to do this and this, but you can never do that or that. They give you a lot more feedback in this day and age, good coaches and coaches at the highest levels. They say, what your problem is from making the team, so that you can work on it, that you can get better at it. It used to be they just didn't bother with it for whatever reason. It just was a different frame of mind from those coaches back then. It was a different atmosphere, a different world. So now you got these guys constantly evaluating, constantly telling them where their shortcomings are, but also giving them encouragement and giving them and empowering them to get better. So it's a much better atmosphere, and it thrives here in Buffalo.
Right after we went off the air yesterday, the practice squad was announced for the team. They had signed 15 players. As we mentioned to you on the show, undrafted rookie corner Nick McLeod was claimed off waivers by the Cincinnati Bengals. He is now on their active roster. So they signed 15 players to their practice squad, all of whom had been with the club. Jake Fromm, Davis Webb, the two quarterbacks, Jack Anderson and Jameel Douglas, the offensive linemen, running back Antonio Williams, wide receivers Isaiah Hodgins and Tanner Gentry, tight end Quentin Morris, defensive lineman Mike Love and Brandon Bryant, linebacker Joe Giles Harris, and corners Rashad Wildgoose, Elijah Griffin, and Cam Lewis, and safety Josh Thomas. The 16th player was added today, Kahale Waring, a tight end who is a former third-round draft choice of the Houston Texans in 2019, and in the last 2 weeks has spent time in the training camps of the New England Patriots and the Indianapolis Colts, and then was cut in roster cutdowns by Indy and was, signed to the Bills practice squad this morning. And he was out there. He's wearing jersey number 81 for anybody that cares. And the practice squad is set. I don't know that it's set in stone necessarily, but anything to be said about the breakdown? Probably the fact that there's 3 corners on there, right?
Yeah, and a safety, right? Josh Thomas.
Yes.
So they brought 4 defensive backs back onto the practice squad after, I mentioned, yes, that's what raised my eyebrows. They let 3 corners go yesterday.
They have 5 on the active roster.
They let 3 of them go, 3 corners go, and a safety go. So they brought them back. They brought Elijah Griffin, Wild Goose, and Cam Lewis back, along with, of course, Josh Thomas. That gives me some comfort.
Yeah.
In a league that throws it, you need healthy bodies who know your defensive calls to be out there and not leave guys running free. Kahale Warring is amazing. He has been with 4 teams in the last 10 days.
That's the life of
I need those
bottom end of the roster guy.
Yeah, I need those airline points on my.
I don't know this, but based on his first name, I am assuming that he is of Polynesian descent, or Pacific Islander is probably the more appropriate term. Hopefully, we get a chance to talk to him and kind of confirm that. But Kahale is short, the shortened version of. Kind of like Chris is the shortened version of Christopher. Mm-hmm. Kahale is the shortened version of his full first name, which I'm going to do my best to pronounce here. But his full first name is Kahale Kuiokalani.
Okay.
That is a mouthful. You remember in class when you had to, the teacher would say, okay, write your name down at the top of the page and let me know, put your hand up when you're done.
Yeah.
This dude was
writing.
last every time.
Yeah, he's still writing.
I mean, what is that? That's 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 letters in his first name. And I'm sure he knows this as well as I do because Christopher has 11 letters in the name. Most computer programs only print up to 10 letters for the first name. I can't tell you how much mail I get that says Christophe Brown. Right. With no R at the end, because that's the 11th letter and it only goes 10 letters.
Oh, well, there you go.
So Kahale Kuiokalani is screwed in that department. Now, here's the best part. His first name is Kahale Kuiokalani. Do you want to know what his middle name is?
Yes. Give it to me.
Michael.
Oh, okay.
Is that fantastic? His middle name's Michael. Like... What?
You're
expecting
this, huh?
like another, you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah,
like another super long, name with a whole bunch of vowels in there.
I saw him come out today. He's from San Diego State. He's a big-bodied dude, 6'5", 250. He's got the look of a third-round pick, in the NFL. I mean, he's big. It's interesting though that. How he's bounced around over the last 4 days after being the draft pick of the Texans.
He's only played in 7 games in his career. All of those were last year, by the way. 3 catches for 35 yards. So those were all with Houston. Mm-hmm. And he's just 24 years old, so it's a young guy that they obviously see something in, maybe see what they can do to develop him. I found it interesting, Steve. After 2 years on the practice squad, this team did not bring back Nate Becker. And I think that well, I don't know what the coaching staff is thinking there, but you have to believe they felt they had enough time evaluating him, seeing what he had to offer, seeing how much he could get better. But when you move on from a player like that that's been in the system for a couple of years and knows it, and you instead choose to go this route with a brand new player who doesn't know the system and is going to need time on the job, it kind of makes you say to yourself, okay, they probably felt that Becker had reached his ceiling as a player and it was still not going to be good enough for where they think they're headed, right? I mean, that's
right. Yeah,
that's a fair assumption, I think.
There wasn't enough progress. Or perhaps there was a consistent deficiency in his game. He kept making a same mistake over and over, or certain mistakes over and over, or was not good enough in what they wanted him to do, or it could have been a multitude of things. But certainly he can't argue with the opportunity he got here.
Yeah. I mean, he got plenty. And this isn't just, I'm not trying to single out Nate Becker. Because the latest practice squad addition is a brand new person when they could have added him, it's just what came to mind as far as I was concerned. But, yeah, I mean, they give guys, I think, for the most part, as long as they do right by the team and, abide by the process, trying to get better every day, you get a long runway here. But there is, a tipping point where if you don't have that breakthrough in your game to advance from the practice squad to the active roster, there's a time to fish and a time to cut bait.
Yeah, I think
and move on.
You earn the runway you get.
Right.
And there you have it. It's that simple.
So
but sooner or later, the runway is going to run out.
Right. Kahale Waring, the newest addition to the Bills' practice squad. So we'll keep an eye on his development as we move along. There is some vaccination news to report from the league. This just in, out of Bucs camp, Bruce Arians, in his latest press conference today, announced that the Buccaneers are now a 100% vaccinated organization. Players and staff members 100% vaccinated now. So we now know of two teams that are clearly 100% vaccinated, the Falcons and the Buccaneers. And, knowing the state of Florida is still in a little bit of disarray with COVID infections, that's probably got Bruce Arians breathing at least a little bit easier, because I did see the NFL, Steve, release the statistics last week that said unvaccinated players are 7 times more likely to contract the COVID virus than vaccinated players. Is it true that vaccinated players can still get infected? Yes, we've seen it. But it is with 7 times more frequency that the unvaccinated players contract the virus. So, Bruce Arians is probably pretty happy, and we shouldn't forget that Bruce Arians was pretty staunch in his comments about wanting his players vaccinated.
Right.
Because he was asked about the league rules. He said, well, there's the league rules, and then there's my rules. So he hasn't pulled any punches, and for that matter, neither is Mike Zimmer up in Minnesota. So we'll see where it goes. We'll see if more teams can get to the 100% vaccination rate going forward here as we get ever closer to the regular season. Colts GM, Chris Ballard, we heard all the stuff about Urban Meyer basically admitting that whether players were vaccinated or not did have an impact on some roster decisions. Bill Belichick answered in the opposite way, which is probably a lie, because all of these coaches, front to back, Steve, have said in no uncertain terms, having a 100% vaccinated roster is a competitive advantage because you can conduct business as you always have pre-pandemic.
Yes, everything's more efficient.
Yeah. So it's a competitive advantage. So if it's a competitive advantage, knowing Bill Belichick like you do, and the way that organization has come very close to bending the rules, if not stepping completely over the line, are we to really believe him when he's asked, did unvaccinated players, did that come into your decision-making process when making roster decisions? He said no. Come on. That's patently false, as far as I'm concerned. In any event, right. Colts GM Chris Ballard said there are consequences for players that are unvaccinated against COVID-19. Now, I want to present this properly, but he basically reiterated on Wednesday that everybody should get vaccinated. And he does a media session just before the regular season with the Indianapolis media, and he was asked a number of questions because there are a number of his players that are not vaccinated, including quarterback Carson Wentz, center Ryan Kelly, and receiver Zach Pascal, who just came off the COVID reserve list on Monday. They were close contacts to a staff member who tested positive, much like the situation we saw here in Buffalo last week. So he said there's consequences to not being vaccinated. Do I think everybody should be vaccinated? Absolutely. I'm for the vaccine. Coach Reich is for the vaccine. We have a lot of guys on our team who are for the vaccine. Is it 100% perfect? No, but it's a good thing. It can help you from ending up in a hospital in a critical situation, and it helps stop some of the spread, and those are positive things. But for guys who have chosen to not get vaccinated, they still understand they're still part of this team. It's their decision, but they're still part of our team, and they have to take care of the team. So he was. There were some follow-up questions for him. He said, I can beat my head against the wall. I can go in there and raise all kinds of hell and go off. That's not how we roll. I believe in our guys. I believe in what they stand for, and I'll stand by them. It's a delicate balance for front office people, coaches. I mean, I think all the coaches in the league know what they would like to have with respect to their roster based on the competitive advantages we've mentioned. But at the same time, they have to be respectful of personal choices. So it's just interesting hearing the different ways that these front office people are addressing the vaccination issue. Some are treading lightly, some are being in-your-face truthful, and some are skirting around it completely.
Yes. And it kind of goes along with what we know about those guys already as well.
Well, that's true.
I think most of these guys are playing true to form in their personality and what they are as a coach, and it's no surprise how most of them are reacting given what we know about them already. That's interesting. I think it's an interesting observation, only in that it's amazing how much we think we know about them.
Yeah.
Has there been any coach that has surprised you with what they've said about it? Some of them may be surprising in the strength of their response, like Bruce Arians saying, "Hey,
Mike Zimmer."
They might maybe the
maybe
the way they
they pulled no
communicated was surprising, but their stance on it, no, it doesn't surprise me. All of these guys.
Yeah. Because at the root of it is a competitive advantage that's undeniable. So that's where it sits with most of them. Speaking of COVID reserve list designations, Chief Safety Tyrann Mathieu placed on the COVID reserve list after he tested positive. He is a vaccinated player, so all that he needs to do is test negative twice within a 24-hour period and be asymptomatic, and he can come back to the team right away. So that's where that stands. And we also saw this report from the NBA. Just to kind of give you an idea about indoor arenas and where things are going with that, we've heard about the Saints and their protocols for their home games. Right. Of course, that's completely up in the air now with the Hurricane Ida blowing through and completely moving their first home game to Jacksonville. But the NBA, a few of their teams are saying unvaccinated Nets, Knicks, and Warriors players are not going to be allowed in their own home arena. So if you are an unvaccinated NBA player for one of those three teams, you're not allowed in your home arena. And that probably goes to the fact that down in New York City, right now, for places of business, you have to show your ID and your vaccination card to go indoors. And even then, you still must wear a mask unless you are actively eating or drinking. That's how it's rolling in the 5 boroughs right now. Mm-hmm. And the Knicks and the Nets are both in the 5 boroughs of New York City. So if you're unvaccinated, you can't come in.
The Nets are saying if you're going to get into Barclays Center, you got to show proof of vaccination.
Yep.
Think about it now. And this is why both sides, you start to shake your head. So what it means is the players who are not vaccinated can't play home games in their building.
Yep.
But if there's a visiting team who has unvaccinated players on it, they're perfectly fine to come in and play.
They are?
That's what it says.
That's crazy. I don't understand the logic
Brooklyn
there.
Nets, New York Knicks, and Golden State Warriors players who haven't received COVID-19 vaccination. I'm reading the article from Jason Owens right here. Won't be allowed to play in their home arenas without an exemption. Per the report, local regulations in New York and San Francisco bar unvaccinated players from even entering the centers, the arenas, without an approved medical or religious exemption. The NBA has informed teams that those laws indeed apply to the players. Visiting players who are not vaccinated, however, will be allowed to play, per the report. Why visiting players don't face the same standards as home players isn't clear.
I don't know if that's right. Because in the previous sentence, the NBA has informed teams that those laws indeed apply to players. So if it applies to players, he didn't say home players.
Maybe the home players are considered employees.
Yeah. Boy, that's that's not
right?
That's beyond gray. That's gray with a capital G, capital R, capital A, capital Y, and an exclamation point.
Yes.
So hopefully the NBA can iron that out between now and the start of their regular season. Good
Lord. Exclamation point? No, it's actually a question mark.
Yeah.
Not an exclamation point. It's like, what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
our world has officially gone crazy. I'm pretty sure
it's official
now.
I'm afraid you are right with that. Twitter conversation today. There are some players on Buffalo's roster whose roles are going to be multifaceted. going forward into the regular season. And we were curious about your curiosity. So we're asking you with our Twitter conversation today, whose role are you most curious about come the regular season? Is it Reggie Gilliam, the Swiss Army knife on offense, Isaiah McKenzie, or Boogie Basham? Or is it somebody else? And the reason we put Boogie Basham on the list today is based on what head coach Sean McDermott said as he addressed the media prior to practice today. And as a reminder, we will present to you head coach Sean McDermott's full question and answer session with the media in the second hour of the program, about 35 minutes from now. But he essentially said, Steve, Boogie Basham is playing 2 to 3 positions and special teams. Because some people, I don't want to say habitually, but are just making the natural comparison because there are 2 draft picks in the same draft. They largely play the same position. And so people are like, oh, Greg Rousseau is really ahead of the game here. He looks like he's ready to go, make an impact. And I don't know if Boogie Basham's even with him or up to speed as much as he is. And Coach McDermott laid it out for everybody today. Boogie Basham is basically learning 3 different positions on defense. And he's also playing on special teams. So Greg Rousseau, by comparison, is just being told to line up at left defensive end. And right. I know you can speak to this far better than I can. That is a wide swath of a difference in terms of responsibilities, what you're learning in the meeting rooms every day, and executing on the field.
It's huge. It's really huge. To have him do, it's a little bit like Gabe Davis last year. All of a sudden, you come out on opening day and now you, hey, look at this guy. He's out here, with the one. He catches the first pass of the year. That's what Boogie Basham is in the neighborhood of doing. All of a sudden, he's going to be on the field all the time. If you want to make an impact, this just in, you need to be on the field. Boogie Basham's going to be out there.
But as you mentioned, Gabriel Davis, that's a guy that was essentially a backup receiver across the board.
That's right.
He was the backup X. He was the backup Y. He was the backup Z. So he had to know all 3 positions.
And he was the starting H.
When they went 4 wide.
Yeah.
So there you go. I mean, so here's a guy that had multiple roles, got on the field right away. Now, Boogie Basham, Coach McDermott admitted, with all of that responsibility, he's still out there on the field thinking a little bit instead of just playing. Right. And this is a natural progression that we see with young players, particularly rookies, where they got their assignment running through their head pre-snap, and maybe because of that, they're not reading their keys or all of their keys.
Right.
Maybe their alignment is something they forgot to pay attention to, or they're split or whatever because they're worried about reading their key in the backfield. So there are different things that start running through the head of a rookie that has so many responsibilities. But it's clear that they believe that Basham's football IQ is such that in time he will be able to handle all of those responsibilities defensively as well as his special teams responsibility, and he'll hit his stride and get to a point where he is just playing. My curiosity lies in, what's all the stuff they're going to have him do?
Right. One of the things, too, is when it's that environment during training camp, the better part of it is when you get into the regular season, you get into a game preparation, you can put Boogie Bash and say, Boogie, this week you're going to stay in this spot the entire game, or you may be in these 2 spots. You don't have to learn all 3. They do this, so we're going to do that, and that's what you have to concentrate on. So he'll be able to hone in week to week on what his specific role is going to be. Now, on game day, somebody tweaks an ankle or shoulder or something. Now he has to go in as a reserve and play that spot a lot more snaps than he thought he was going to. Then you get into maybe he's not playing his best because he's behind the 8 ball. But as the season wears on, and you want to put him in all these positions in the preseason to see if he can do it and give him some, an evaluation. But now that the season's here, all that's gone. You want him to play a spot on Sunday. or 2 spots on Sunday, and that vastly helps him get mentally prepared to be better on game day. So that it's a better environment today than it was last Thursday because he knows more about what they're going to ask him to do this week.
And I'll say this too. I felt as though Boogie Basham's play got better with each preseason outing. Like in Detroit, he made a play late in the game, but he was kind of feeling his way. You can kind of, if you were watching him, he was kind of feeling his way through the game.
Right.
Chicago flashed a little bit more. And then in Green Bay, I thought he was a more consistent player. So I think the coach, if I can see that, you have to believe the trained eye of the coaches when they're reviewing the game tape can see that as well. And that's got to be encouraging because it's like, hey, look, we put a ton on this kid's plate, and he's steadily getting to a point where he's going to be able to contribute for us, not maybe just in a singular role, but in multiple roles.
Right.
I am just really interested to see where he fits in the puzzle up front on the defensive line.
It'll be interesting, too, because they got so many guys. It's not like he has to play 4 positions. They got guys. They got plenty of guys. It'll be interesting to say, okay, if they wanted to see, okay, because we knew Basham could play outside defensive end, inside, over the tackle, and probably on both sides as well. They probably are giving him the opportunity, given the depth they have at the position, to find out what he does best, try and evaluate him and what he does best and give him a chance to do that when the regular season rolls around.
Yep.
That's on the coaches as well, because you got to figure with his abilities, he's going to be on the team. And the rest of it is like, okay, what can we learn about him during this preseason so we can use it?
What have we learned?
Right. And how can we use it to win games?
Yeah.
So I think going forward, while he's shown the willingness to play 3 different spots, I think when he finds a spot that he's really, really good at, you can bet he's going to get a lot more snaps there.
Whose role are you most curious about come the regular season? Your choices are there on the tweet sheet at One Bills Live, so respond there if you wish, or give us a call, 803-0550, 1-888-550-2550. Whose role are you most curious about come the regular season in terms of what they're going to be doing for this Bills team in 2021? Steve and I back in a moment here on One Bills Live, presented by Kaleida Health. It's Buffalo Bills Radio. Welcome back. Just a little bit of a practice update as our MSG viewers are watching Josh Allen throw the football out on the practice field. The team's pretty healthy right now. Micah Hyde was excused yesterday for personal reasons. He is not at practice again today. Reed Ferguson is on the side, not participating, but he is there. I believe he was dealing with a back issue, which forced him out of the game last week against the Packers. So probably still dealing with that. Star Latulele also not in attendance, listed with a calf injury yesterday. So presumably that is what is still keeping him out. And then a few players in red non-contact jerseys: Dane Jackson, Isaiah McKenzie, and practice squad running back Antonio Williams. So that brings you up to date on the practice situation for the Bills. Let's go to the tweet sheet brought to you by Corrigan Moving Systems, the official equipment moving company of the Buffalo Bills. Whose role are you most curious about come the regular season? And the player choices are Reggie Gilliam, Isaiah McKenzie, Boogie Basham, or somebody else. And Steve checked in on the voting during the break, and I believe Reggie Gilliam was out in front, right?
Yeah, the latest is he's got 33 1/3%,
Oh.
and Boogie Basham is 32.4%.
It's tight.
And Isaiah McKenzie 28%. So
What a poll!
It's a very nice poll. I'm very impressed. This is top 10 all time.
Steve gets very excited when it's a very balanced poll race there. So yeah, that's interesting. We'd love to know why you make the choice that you
Mine
do.
is because we haven't seen Reggie Gilliam play a role, or a player like Reggie play a role that's big, particularly when they don't have enough guys to run a regular offense the way you'd see it run. The coaches are like this. If we saw Reggie in the game against Chicago, and did a lot of things. Ran out of the backfield, ran as a fullback, ran as the tailback, finished the game as a tailback, played tight end a year ago. But this is not a team that, uses that kind of thing a lot. And coaches don't like to go into a game without a backup for a package of players or plays. So you can't go 3 tight ends. You can't do a 3 tight end formation without a backup tight end. You got 3 tight ends, period. What happens if somebody tweaks a hamstring on the opening kickoff?
Yeah, it's going to change your goal line package for sure.
Your goal line package and your play selection change. Everything changes. You don't want to have to do that on something, that could happen not even on the play. I mean, not even on the play you're talking about.
That says to me they're probably not using that a whole lot. So because of that, do you think that means that Reggie Gilliam is little more than a package player this year?
Well, here's one
Let's
thing.
not forget, they did not have a fullback on this roster last season.
No, but they had 4 tight ends.
Right. But I guess what I mean by that is they got through an entire season without a fullback. Are they really going to use one this year when we expect the offense to a great degree to be pretty similar to last year?
You know what I think it means? One thing it means is that when you get into short yardage, like a 4th and half a yard, or 4th and a yard and a half, and you're going to got to go for it, or whatever, 3rd and 1, short yardage and goal line. I think it's a nod to the fact that you got a quarterback that's as good a short yardage running back as anybody in the league, and he's got the ball in his hands, and he can throw it or run it. I think that precludes the necessity of having the ability to line up with 2 backs in the backfield. You don't need to because your quarterback's one of them. You can put Reggie Gilliam back there as a tailback, and now he's automatically a fullback because your quarterback can run right behind him. So I think that's
a pistol.
I think that is probably one of the considerations when you're putting up, and that's a luxury when you've got a quarterback like Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Cam Newton, those kind of runners, Lamar and Deshaun Watson, those kind of guys.
So you voted for Gilliam. I voted for Basham just because what I heard from Coach today, and we'll hear those comments in about 20 minutes on the show here in their entirety, saying that Boogie Basham's playing 2 to 3 roles. I mean, we've seen him line up at end. We've seen him kick down inside in obvious passing situations. But the fact that he's got 3 positional roles is pretty fascinating to me, not to mention the fact that he is on special teams. It wouldn't surprise me, Steve, if what made Darryl Johnson expendable is Boogie Basham's ability to play special teams. Another big guy, maybe certainly not as long, but runs just as well. So I think that might have made Darryl Johnson, Bam Johnson, a little expendable and available for trade.
And you think about this, too. They lost Lee Smith from last year's roster, and got a tweet from the Buffalo football team says Spencer Brown is probably a better tight end 3 than Lee Smith is at this point of his career.
Yeah.
That's a good way to put it because that's what you're thinking about. Spencer Brown being a backup tackle who's 6'8", played tight end as a kid, all of that stuff.
Well, we talked about that with Eric Wood yesterday.
Right. He's certainly capable of lining, and so is everybody else. Ryan Bates is capable of lining up as a third tight. You can line anybody up there, and the defense doesn't know what they're capable of, so there's always that question mark. But when you get a guy like Spencer Brown, who's
a tree,
enormous, he can certainly set the edge and get the edge of the offense to the corner, but he can also get to the back of the end zone and go up for one.
Yeah.
So it's a good point because if you lose a tight end like Lee Smith through a trade like the Bills did to Atlanta, and Spencer Brown comes walking in the door, he's going to be active on game day.
Yeah.
Throw the guy in there and give him a chance to catch a pass. And you're not going to have him catch the pass and go, bust a tackle and go 65 yards for a touchdown. But a first down is pretty cool.
Right.
Yeah, so I get that. And that's Reggie Gilliam is, to me, he's a safety net.
Okay.
I mean, when he's in there, you don't get predictable. You know what I mean?
Because he's got various skills.
When you start lining offensive linemen up as tight ends and all that, and fullbacks,
people feel like they know what's coming.
Yeah, you tend to get a little predictable.
Eli on the tweet sheet says, tweeting in from Puerto Rico. Thanks for doing that. Muchas gracias. I picked Gilliam. I am intrigued that he can be used as a tight end and fullback/running back. Those tough, hard yards seem to be his specialty. And if what he showed in the preseason is who he is, I want to see it a lot from the 1-yard line to the end zone. Go Bills. Yeah. Let's not forget, I mean, the first catch he made was for a touchdown in week 2 against Miami last year.
That's right. That's right.
As a tight end.
Got him started on the way to 13 different players catching a touchdown last year. Versatility is great. We've talked a lot about it, about how there's a couple of guys like Boogie Basham and Reggie Gilliam who are very versatile. Isaiah McKenzie's one who has showed some versatility. But you don't want a ton of those guys because you really need some guys that are elite at what they – and even if it is only at one thing. But having these guys that are multiple, we talk about it a lot at this time of year because it helps you make the roster. And even though they may not be the guys that drive this team to the Super Bowl, they certainly make it so that the Bills can keep and find guys who will get them to a Super Bowl, theoretically.
Yeah. We have to take a break here, but when we come back, more of your thoughts on the tweet sheet and head coach Sean McDermott coming up in about 15 minutes as he addressed the media today prior to practice. We'll bring his comments to you in full. Coming up in a little bit here on One Bills Live, presented by Kaleida Health. It's Buffalo Bills Radio. Welcome back. One Bills Live is the show you're listening to. Steve Tasker and Chris Brown are the people speaking to you now. And we will get back to the tweet sheet here in short order, as we are asking you, who are you most curious to see come the regular season in terms of their role? Choices we gave you were Reggie Gilliam, Isaiah McKenzie, who now has special teams duties full-time, and one Boogie Basham, who we have come to learn has 2 to 3 roles defensively and will also play on special teams, possibly in the role previously manned by Bam Johnson. So there's that. The Hurricane Ida, Steve, has obviously wreaked havoc not only down in the Mississippi Delta, but also across New York. I don't know if you saw some of the subway footage last night, but it was basically a waterfall down some subway staircases to the subway.
Right.
Like waterfall.
Yeah. Like, get out.
Yeah. Like whitewater rafting type stuff.
Yeah.
This was the most interesting story that I found thus far. We obviously heard the unfortunate story about the man who was the victim of an alligator attack down in Louisiana in the flooding, because they got alligators down there and they've got far more areas to roam when you have floodwaters where they are. But yesterday there was a cow rescued from a tree after Hurricane Ida.
A tree.
So essentially, yeah, you're saying, how the hell do you get a cow in a tree? With floodwaters. So the floodwaters rose so high that they were carrying a cow downstream, wherever the heck they were, and then the waters slowly subsided, and the cow is 10 feet in the air up in a tree branch. And he's like, the branch is literally between his front 2 legs. His front 2 legs are kind of draped over this branch.
So like he's like a cat.
Well, he's
with his front legs.
He's the middle of his body is what's hung up on the tree. So half of him is hanging over the front of this large limb. And he's pinned.
Not straddling it.
Look at these. Look at our cracked staff. Is this unbelievable?
They found the video. There it is.
He's stuck in a tree.
He's looking around at these guys, saying like, "Hey, a little help, guys."
Like the bovine is so heavy here, he can't pry himself loose from the branch, and his weight is evenly distributed on either side. He ain't moving. You got to bust out the chainsaw for this one, and if you're not careful, you'll have a porterhouse to go with the branch. So you got to. So from what we understand, they were able to free the wedged cow from the tree. The crew used chainsaws to cut branches from the tree and bring the cow back down to ground level. Now, this probably can't be very good for the cow's innards, knowing that his full weight is being pressed down on his rib cage and his 4 stomachs, right? Cows have 4 stomachs?
I guess.
Yeah, they do. I think they do.
6th grade science.
That's right, man. We got to pull that out whenever it's – I'm telling you, my science teacher, she's clapping right now from 6th grade.
The hurricane has swept all the way across the eastern seaboard, right? I mean, from bottom to top on the map. And
diagonal swath.
New York is the city itself.
They got 3 inches of water.
Yeah.
In like 2 hours.
My son and his wife live on the island of Manhattan, and he's like, it's nuts. Yeah. It's nuts. There's pictures on social media of guys floating on air mattresses in the alley.
Yeah.
Right? So
the mayor called a state of emergency last night. Now, from what I understand, it's sunny and dry there this morning, fortunately.
Well,
as the
sunny
storm
and not
has
raining.
moved.
It's not dry.
Yeah. Not dry, right. No precipitation. It was probably the better way to put that. But, yeah, it was pretty wild last night. They had to shut the subway system down in certain areas in New York last night. So, yeah. Fortunately, wiser people stayed indoors. But you have people that have to get places. You know, your first responders, your hospital workers, they still have to get to work for their shifts. And if you don't have public transportation in New York, that's a big problem.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of people in a lot of hospitals and a lot of people that need care. So it was a little bit of a mess there last night. But no cows in trees in New York.
Yeah, probably not.
Only in Louisiana, apparently.
But it's pretty bad.
I couldn't believe it. It's like one of those freak shows at the circus. Cow in a tree. What? It's just not. I mean, that's the first time I've ever seen a cow in a tree. So I had to bring that.
Yeah, exactly.
To everybody's stream of consciousness.
We get this. We come down through, and we're finally into. Well, we're not quite. I guess it feels like game week because there's no more games until.
Well, we're 10 days out.
10 days out.
A pregnant game week.
53. The 53-man roster has been set. Okay, Brownie, here we go. So there's 7 rounds of the NFL draft, right?
Yes.
And so obviously there are more first-rounders in the NFL that made the 53-man rosters than any other round, right? And it goes in sequential order from 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, and then the undrafted. How many undrafted players do you think made? There were 263 first-rounders.
Yeah.
How many undrafted guys made it?
I have to be honest here. I think I saw this tweet.
Yeah.
It's over 400, right?
Yeah. The bulk, almost 40% more guys that were undrafted made the NFL 53-man rosters than first-rounders. Yeah. There are more undrafted guys making the NFL than drafted guys.
Right. There weren't
in any round, not more. There's more drafted guys that made it in the 7 rounds, but the biggest number of guys are the undrafteds.
Right. Ike Butker is an undrafted player on this current roster, and Jake Kummerow is an undrafted player who is on this roster. Reggie Gilliam is an undrafted player who is on this roster, and there are others. We can run down the list. But, yeah, there is that presence on almost every roster. So, your long snapper in many cases is an undrafted player. So Reed Ferguson is an undrafted guy.
Kickers usually don't get drafted.
Right. In this case, Tyler Bass was a 6th-round pick for the Bills, respectively. But, yeah, there's a lot of undrafteds that find their way onto rosters. Levi Wallace, another undrafted player on Buffalo's roster. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. Tyrell Dodson, another guy.
There's a ton of them.
Andre Smith, I believe, was undrafted. So,
there are more guys. There in all, there are way more guys that got drafted in the NFL, but no round, 1st through the 7th, has more guys in it than the undrafted ranks by far.
It's a larger pool.
By far.
It's a larger pool,
it's like
but you still got to make the roster.
Yeah, it's like taking, Tiger Woods in a golf tournament against the field.
Yeah.
And that's why there's it's inspiring a little. It should be inspiring, particularly the young football players, college kids. I never expected to get drafted, and I did. But there's a lot of guys who kind of thought they were going to get drafted and did not, and it's discouraging for them. And there's a lot of guys that go to college, whatever college you go to, and think, I don't know. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Just get an opportunity. You got to that's all it takes. And these 460 some odd guys are proof of that. 415 undrafted players, and there's only 700 in the top 3 rounds of the draft. 700 and some in the top 3 rounds of the draft.
F.A. Obata is another one, albeit by different means, but undrafted nonetheless.
International pool.
Undrafted nonetheless. Break time for us here. When we come back, we are going to be bringing you head coach Sean McDermott, who addressed the media prior to practice today. We're going to bring you his comments front to back. Coming up next here on One Bills Live, presented by Kaleida Health. This is Buffalo Bills Radio.
And it's Steve Tasker who has been all over the field.
Kind of unique. He was kind of a dual role player for you.
Steve!
A balloon.
Steve! A blimp? We're not even in the stratosphere of normalcy. Hour number 2 of a Thursday edition of One Bills Live, and time now for us to turn to head coach Sean McDermott, who addressed the media prior to practice today. Here's Coach.
Tasker wishes he's on the golf course right now. We all do. All right, time's yours.
Sean, when it comes to the roster construction, and Brandon talked a little bit about this yesterday, that for example, Jacob was caught up, not necessarily in a tight end thing, but you kept so many defensive linemen. How much of that, in general, not maybe specifically this season, happens organically, and how much of that is looking at the draft and everything else? I mean, I guess the question I'm asking is this kind of a roster you arrived at more after looking at how everything fit together in training camp than anything else?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's always a large part of how you arrive where you're at the end of training camp, is just seeing how it fits together, and then philosophically, watching how we've evolved every year, where you're at offensively, defensively, special teams, and then obviously as an overall team. So, and trying to stay as balanced as we can. It's never exactly how you want it to be, but you try and stay as balanced as you can through all 3 phases as well.
Well, where do things stand at that cornerback competition between Levi and Dane?
Yeah, so they continue to battle, and that's true for all positions. The competition continues, and that's a good thing. We've got extremely competitive guys out here that want to compete. That's the environment we foster and facilitate every day out here, and yet it's putting the team first and taking care of one another. So, currently you'll see Levi out there. You'll also see Dane at times.
John, can you talk about the decision to keep or bring back both Davis Webb and Jake Fromm, and what was behind that? Good additions for us. Always good to have as many guys as we were able to get back under our roof here, and those guys are going to continue to grow and develop, and in particular at that position, those are hard guys to find in this league. Good quarterbacks, and we think the world of those two, and thankful to have them back under our roof, like I said. Partly because of the situation we're still in with this virus, having 4 to protect yourself too? Yeah,
it doesn't hurt. I can tell you that wasn't the driving force, but it doesn't hurt because of the environment we're in.
Sean, how much of the decision to release Jacob Hollister was your trust in what you've seen from Dawson Knox this year?
I think, at every position that goes into being able to release, although it's never easy, being able to release someone, it's because you have trust in the people that you keep. And in this case, in Dawson, we've seen improved play through really the spring and now on through training camp, and whether it be the run game or the pass game. And I think Josh would say the same. So you've seen an increased level of trust from Josh in the tight end passing game. So, I believe Dawson's best ball is ahead of him.
What does a guy like Taiwan Jones bring to your team? Fans don't see him carrying the ball or catching the ball because of his role. Why is he so important to you?
Yeah, well, he does something that not a lot of people do, and that's embrace the special teams role, and he takes a lot of pride in that. And there's another good guy that played with the Bills a couple years ago that did that also. Should be in the Hall of Fame. Just biased vote, but yeah, I mean, he takes a lot of pride in that role, and he's also a leader for our football team, and plays at a high level every week he's out there.
John, how are you treating this brand new week, this preseason bye week? Is it really just simply the same as a regular season bye week?
Yeah, it's interesting. We'll see if this is the case next year again, but I'm a routine guy, and you guys know that, so I'm trying to get kind of my handle on this week and making sure I'm in the right spot and what we're working on, I'm supposed to be working on, and serving our team the best way that I can. So I'm figuring it out just like everybody else here.
Sean, Brandon said 11 is probably the most he would keep at defensive line. He said he would have loved to keep 12 if Darryl Johnson was still a part of the roster, but coming from a defensive-minded approach, when you see 11 guys a part of that group, I mean, how does your brain start to churn with what you can do with that amount?
Yeah, it's great that we have those options, Maddie. Now they got to play, and it's time to buckle down and produce, and that's what I'm looking for that's what we have to have from that unit. We got to have it as an overall team for sure, but they're going to be a big factor in that, and so enough has been written about them. No more writing about the D-line. Now it's time for them to produce, and that's why they're here. So,
Are you at a point now where you begin work on Pittsburgh, or are you still fine-tuning yourselves at this point?
Yeah, both, Chris. That's what I was referring to a little bit of, trying to find my way this week, and how much I work on Pittsburgh, and how much is, again, focusing on getting our roster right, getting the practice squad right, getting things just from an administrative standpoint across to the team that we need to cross off our list this week. So it's been a little bit of both, and it'll continue to be that on until probably Monday at this point.
Knowing that you've got a lot of things to improve on, it's early, the season hasn't even begun. What perspective did you draw from the 3 preseason games in training camp, or the 3 preseason games especially, in how the team competed? Be it how Mitch, how you ran the ball against Detroit, how Mitch produced in the first half against Chicago, and how just everything seemed to work offensively against Green Bay last weekend.
It's never as good as you want it to be, and it's never as bad as you think it is. So that's the saying in coaching. I think perspective is important. We know the toughest tests are ahead, and that's a healthy mindset this time of year, and that starts with Pittsburgh. So not to get ahead of ourselves, we got to practice in front of us here. So I think we have to, winning looks, winning comes in different forms, and winning looks different to some people than others. One of my favorite drives moments from the game the other day, the Green Bay game, was when we didn't have the success that we wanted to have, because there's growth in there if we handle it the right way. And so certainly great to move the ball like we did that first series, but I think it was the second series we were backed up on the 1-yard line. We were able to get it out, but then the drive stalled, and so I think there's a lot of opportunity for growth there.
Sean, we've seen Greg Rousseau take a step forward in getting some reps with the first-team defense during the preseason games. Where would you categorize where Boogie Basham is right now at this point in his career?
Yeah, I think he's competing. I think, again, his best football's ahead of him. He's working in 2 or 3 different positions. He's also contributing on special teams. So, it's really interesting to look at it from that perspective because, Joe, Greg is a little bit more in one position, if you will, where Boogie's having to balance 2 or 3 or 4 positions, which early on is going to force him to process and think a little bit more. And once he gets through that, he'll play faster. And so I think he's getting better every day.
Sean, now that the training camp's over and the preseason's over, positions that you had heavy competition at, let's just say at that number 2 corner spot between Dane and Levi. Are you still evaluating that competition, or do you have at this point have a pretty good idea of who is going to start there?
Well, no, I mean, listen, I have a pretty good feel in my mind, but at the same time, we always compete every day. These guys know same for my job. There's a million people outside that gate waiting to take my job, and I know they feel the same. So that's a healthy mentality that you continue to grow every day and stay competitive and know that these spots are earned daily. Yeah, I mean, that's the business of the NFL, as they say.
How many kind of growth have you seen from Al over this training camp?
I think in a lot of ways, Jay, it's been both on and off the field. You just see a young man that's I'm watching him now. He's out here early going through his pre-practice routine. I can tell you that wasn't always the case. He's connecting himself to the situations that come up through the course of the game, which is a challenge for young players coming from college to the NFL. So I think he's improving in a lot of different areas.
Expectations for him are always going to be a thing based on where he was drafted, whether that's amongst us or the fans. How do you discuss that with him? Maybe not try to put too much on him, or how do you approach that?
No, listen, these guys are so aware of media expectations and things anymore due to these phones that are around me here, and I don't think that needs to be brought to someone's attention. If it does, that's a question for Brandon why we drafted the guy. But no, these guys know. They know that's out there, but I think the biggest thing is when you play that position, there's a lot of unselfish traits that go with that position, and you're not always on the stat sheet. You're not always noticed on television or on the news or on SportsCenter, but it's what happens, kind of between the hedges, if you will, that really factors into a game.
Cody Ford looked like he was with the first team most of the day yesterday. What that means, who knows? But do you feel like you've got a handle on the starting five on the offensive line, and where are you in terms of how that fivesome came through? Because it was a revolving door last year.
Yeah, no, it's that, continuity is important in all areas. But again, I think it speaks to the trust that we have and the depth that we have, that there's still competition at that position along the front. I thought Deion, if you go player by player across the front, Deion had a setback early and came back, and he's coming back and he's playing better and better every day. And then you go to left guard with John, and John had a few days where he missed in there too, and I think he's playing better every day. And then go right on down the line, right? But we all have our own challenges and things that these guys are working on, so the competition continues there as well, and those guys know that. So we try and do our best to communicate to everyone what the situation is.
Sean, you mentioned making the most of your opportunity. Devin Singletary, not a ton of touches this preseason, but made the most of them. Looked explosive. What were your takeaways from not only his preseason but his spring and his summer?
Yeah, I see the same thing. He looks. I don't know if you want to say in better shape, but he looks like he really worked this offseason. Not that he didn't work last offseason. I know he did. He's just cut that way, and he's got burst to him this year. And when he's touched the ball, he's made things happen. And then his pass protection has been on point as well. So he's caught the ball well out of the backfield. So he looks like he's in a good spot and ready to go.
Sean, how much more? I'm not going to say easier, more efficient. Does it make everyone's job to have the kind of roster that Brandon and Joe have built, that you release all these guys and then you get them right back on the practice squad because they're your guys? You're not getting guys from other organizations. You didn't even put any waiver claims in, from what Brandon said. How much better does that make everyone's job?
What's he doing, man? That guy. What's he doing? I know he was here. He said he was here late the other night doing that stuff. No.
Think about back to your first couple years in the roster turnover versus basically what you have now in that situation.
Yeah. I mean, it's. I can tell you from a head coach, you're always like, hey, man, what about this? What about this? What about this? And I'm sure he gets tired of me knocking on his door. But I think it shows confidence in the guys that we have and trust in the players that we have, and that's what you want. But I also know I have confidence and trust in Brandon and his staff that I know we joke about it, but I don't I know when they're here, what they're doing, and they're always on the hunt for improving our football team. And I think that doesn't always happen everywhere, that relationship between the head coach and the GM and his staff and my staff. So there's mutual respect and mutual trust, which I think helps us all do our jobs at a higher level.
Knowing that you're not starting against a division opponent, but you're starting against a familiar opponent in Pittsburgh that you've played the past 2 seasons, is there, I don't want to say comfort, but at least you know who that team is to a certain extent?
Well, I think if you're in the league long enough, you have a pretty good feel for who people are, and I feel like 20-some years now for myself. It's amazing how fast it goes. But, yeah, I think there's people probably feel the same way about me and about us, that they feel like they know who we are. So that's what makes it special. That's what makes the competition level so high, and we look forward to that. They're a good football team, and we expect a very tough game.
You text back and forth, Mike, yet?
No, we probably stay in touch a couple times a year. I know he's going to have his football team ready to go. He's in the preseason game where Ben played. I think it was Detroit. They looked really good.
We know Gabe Davis obviously just entering his second season, but what do you think he brings to this offense?
Yeah, Gabe's such a special person. He's unique, very mature for a young man. Even last year when he first got here, you saw the production on the field, obviously. He's really he does a lot of things for this offense. He does a lot of things for this football team. He's one of the first guys in the weight room this morning. For a young player to have that DNA and those character traits just says a lot about how he was raised by his mom and the family he was brought up by.
Sean, where do things stand from an injuries perspective with Isaiah McKenzie, Taron Johnson, and Harrison Phillips in relation to Week 1?
Yeah, it's still a projection at this point, Joe. So we'll see all 3 of those guys out here today in some capacity. So we'll just take it one day at a time at this point. I don't know yet for sure. Yeah.
So that's head coach Sean McDermott addressing the media today. Covered a number of topics. And as I said earlier in the show, the one that interested me the most was the fact that Boogie Basham is handling a couple of roles defensively, position-wise, assignment-wise, and is also manning special teams. And I wouldn't be surprised to see him in a similar role that was previously manned by Bam Johnson on special teams, being a same position-type player who can run as well as Darryl Johnson. Wouldn't be surprised to see him on some kickoff and some other stuff. But he touched on a number of topics there. They're getting to work on Pittsburgh here, and they should. The percentages, however, are going to shift and change with each passing day. As you get closer and closer to Tuesday, knowing this team has the weekend off, that's when the balance shifts to full-blown game preparation mode on Tuesday, presumably, if not Monday.
Yeah, and he had a lot of nice things to say about not only this. We've been talking about the defensive line and, the trade with Bam Johnson and Boogie Basham, and he made it clear they got to play now. All that talk has been leading up to how great they are. Let's see it. I think it's a good transition for that. He also had nice things to say about Devin Singletary. He said he's done everything. He went down the list of skill sets that, and it was about every skill set a running back needs to have. Running with the football, toughness, balance, catching the ball out of the backfield, how he's been off the field and his work ethic, the way he's transformed his body in his offseason has really shown up this year, and also his pass protection is on point. So he had a lot of nice things to say about a lot of guys on the roster. It's going to be interesting to see, if that translates into an enlarged role for Motor Singletary or more snaps or a larger percentage of the snaps for Motor. But a lot of good things to say about his club and where they're at. He kind of joked about the fact that the Bills didn't put any claims in on anybody.
Yeah.
And he feigned disgust with Brandon Beane about not being – but you're 30th in the claim.
You're not getting anybody.
You can put as many claims as you want. You're getting 0. And we said yesterday, across the league, there were 27 guys.
Claimed, yeah.
Claimed. 27.
It's less than one per team, obviously. Although Jacksonville scooped up a couple of people.
Right, because they're number one on the
They're
claims.
first in the order.
They're first in the order. That says a lot to me, that across the league, I think everybody kind of sees things the same way. They got a pretty good handle on what these guys can and cannot do. Kahale Waring, the Bills' newest practice squad member, has been through 4 teams in the last 10 days.
Yeah.
So it'll let you know that something. If you're out there and you're a commodity and you have some measurables, you're going to get checked out. But being signed and kept is another thing.
There is some NFL news to discuss, and it concerns Cam Newton. We had heard rumors that the Cowboys were considering Cam Newton after his release from the New England Patriots, but NFL Network's Ian Rappaport is reporting that the Cowboys have declared they are out on Cam Newton, and the general consensus is it appears unlikely that he will sign with a club before the start of the regular season. Then there's this, Steve. We're all familiar with the Pat McAfee podcast. Apparently, in an interview that he had with NFL Network's Ian Rappaport, the Saints, in considering where to play their displaced game, Week 1, which was supposed to be home in New Orleans against the Packers, that has been moved because of Hurricane Ida. The league kind of
Jacksonville.
Yeah, it's moved to Jacksonville. The league asked them, where do you want to play this game? Here are some options. The Saints said, we'll get back to you, and then proceeded to investigate not only Aaron Rodgers' record in the state of Florida, Texas, and other places, they also investigated what plane flight would cost the most money for Packers fans in the regions they were examining where they would play this game. They found that Jacksonville would be the most expensive flight for Green Bay Packers fans, and it went into the consideration in choosing Jacksonville.
Let me just say this.
Reportedly.
Good for them. Leave no stone unturned.
I could see Sean Payton doing that, couldn't you?
I could see any team doing that. That is a step beyond.
Because you are losing home field advantage.
Yes.
No question. By not playing in the Superdome.
Well, for instance, first of all,
So
because
you're trying to make a neutral
nobody
site
in New Orleans, after getting crushed by another hurricane,
is going to a game 2 weeks later.
Is going to spend the money to go to a game in another state.
Let alone Jacksonville, which has got to be at least a 10-hour drive.
Right. So you knew home field was going away. Why not make it as tough as you can on the other team, too? So there you have it. That does not surprise me at all. You put stuff, and we do it here at One Bills Drive, of course, as well, and on our show. We put stuff out about our team all the time on the website, both written and video, all of that stuff. You know this. Every team on your schedule is going to review all of that. The Bills will review everything the Jets put out. The Bills will review everything the Patriots, the Dolphins put out, Pittsburgh Steelers. They monitor all that website. They look at the background of guys doing shots at practice. They watch what's going on at practice. So it does not surprise me that you find out how good does your team play in Jacksonville. That's your opponent. How good does your opponent play in Jacksonville? And if they stink, let's play it there.
Yeah. Because like I was saying, you've lost home field advantage. At best, it's a neutral site game. As Steve pointed out, none of your fans, by the way, I looked it up, it's 8 hours and 15 minutes to drive from New Orleans to Jacksonville. There's very few people doing that. They're trying to bail out their homes from water.
If you can bail your car out in order to get in it to drive.
Well, yeah, that's the other thing. Their cars are probably mostly underwater. So you're trying to avoid it becoming an away game. So, yeah, make it cost prohibitive for Green Bay fans to travel, although they do tend to travel pretty well. On the whole, and a trip to Florida for anybody in Wisconsin is probably an attractive thing. So it'll be interesting to see what that atmosphere is like Week 1 in Jacksonville. We have to take a break, but when we come back, we hope to have some comments from a couple of players who spoke after practice today, among them Gabriel Davis. We'll get those out to you as soon as we can. Coming up here in a bit on One Bills Live, presented by Kaleida Health. It's Buffalo Bills Radio. Back here on One Bills Live, and as we mentioned to you, a couple of players speaking to the media after practice, Gabriel Davis and Levi Wallace. We have Gabriel Davis ready to go now, so here is the second-year wide receiver.
The offense was clicking under Josh the first time we got a chance to see him this preseason. How much can you take away from that as momentum or confidence, knowing that things look good?
Oh yeah, I mean we do a lot of work out here on the days that nobody's watching, and all of a sudden you get to see it put together on those Saturdays when we played our preseason games, and we're ready to play, ready to compete. We got a lot of great guys around us. 17's obviously a big guy there. He's being QB. We got the O-line and the receivers also that are helping out and doing everything they can to be successful.
Does that carry over? Can that carry over?
Oh yeah, 100% it'll carry over. We have a standard and an expectation that we want to reach every single week, and I know we'll reach it.
For your development, how much has it helped that you've been here with three, talented, maybe not three, but talented, experienced veterans? Not from the point of view that, you get to learn from you, which is obviously great, but that you're not asked to be a large producer in this offense right away, that you can kind of do a little more learning and make it maybe progress a little, slow is not the right word, but at least have the opportunity to learn before you have to do it on the field.
No, yeah, like you said, being able to learn from those big three guys. But the best thing I know that I did this year was I was able to learn from them, then take it to the offseason and put it together, and figure out ways I could bring all of their ideas together and their strengths and try to put them into my game. Anything can happen. It can come from a small role to a big role. I feel like everybody's role is important, and I try to play mine the best ability that I can. But I'm blessed to have the guys that I have to be able to watch and learn from to become, a better receiver.
Do you ever get a little antsy that all these things you've learned and used in the offseason, that you'd like to have more chances to show it on the field in game day?
Yeah, of course. I know a lot of guys wish they had a lot more chances out there, but again, you got to know your role and execute it the best way. I'm happy with the team that I'm part of. Couldn't ask for anything better right now, and just happy to be here.
After the last preseason game, Josh Allen made the statement that he trusts you. What's that mean to you, just being such a young guy already in 2 years, you gained his trust?
Yeah, no, it definitely means a lot, especially from a high-caliber QB like Josh. You come here being the new guy, and you try to show these guys that you can compete and that you can perform to their level. And I feel like I did just that and was able to execute on every single opportunity that was given to me, and to be able to have his trust is everything.
Having the year you had last year in the offseason to kind of implement stuff, just how much more comfortable or how are you feeling now as you're during the season, knowing it's not your rookie year, you're not learning a new playbook, you're not having to kind of learn, kind of put behind?
Yeah, of course. There's definitely less nerves going out there every single day. Learning so much to be able to put it into my game and be able to, be an expert of it and come out here and be able to do a lot of things different and do it well.
What about your dancing? You're a shy guy, but you have some moves.
No, I like to have fun. Again, especially when it comes to scoring touchdowns and being around the guys, you put a lot of work in during the week, and you have to go out there and celebrate when it's put together.
That catch, the route that you ran, Josh talked about how you guys haven't even practiced that this training camp. How did that all come together? You just saw something and Josh saw something?
Just depending on what the defense is giving us. We know a route to run based off of that, and at the end of the day, maybe we haven't completed a pass like that, but at the end of the day, we know when we see that type of defense out there, we know where people are supposed to be and where the ball is supposed to be thrown.
How much did you know you had an inkling that ball was coming?
No, yeah. As soon as I seen the way the defense was set up, and as long as everybody did their job the right way, obviously the O-line was able to keep Josh protected for a long time. That was a deep route. Dawson was able to get his guy to come down, and I was able to break it up over top and be able to get in the end zone. So it felt great, though, yeah.
Is this because people talk about how you're so knowledgeable of the playbook, and this goes back to your rookie season when you had Diggs asking you where to line up. Is this part of that study? Is this part of that, the thing that you developed over the course of your, when you started playing football that you've always talked about?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I knew, again, guys have each role, and I knew that I had to be a backup to Bees or
E, or it was Smoke at the time last year, or Diggs, and I knew I had to be able to go in and execute what they do every single day, and know every single position, every single play in that position. So it was just a constant grind for me to be going home, studying the playbook, coming here, getting with Chad, going over the plays before practice, and just constantly doing flashcards and just everything to really help me understand what's going on in the plays. So when I go out there, it's just I'm more worried about what to do with what the defense is giving me than worried about what route I have.
I've never played receiver, so I'm curious. Flashcards.
Yeah.
What do you mean by flashcards?
Oh, you write the play on the front, and then you put the play on. You write the word of the play on the front, and then you draw the pictures on the back, and you try to be able to say it, obviously, before you look at it and be able to guess all the right stuff.
And how have you scored on that?
Oh, I've been doing it since I've been in the NFL, for sure. It's helped me a whole bunch to learn every single position, every single way. I feel like it's automatically the best way to do it. Also taking a whiteboard and drawing up the play every single time, too, as well.
Gabe, is there one thing that you think you're better at this year than last year, or maybe one thing you want to be better at this year than last year?
Just adding some craft to my routes, not keeping it, how the picture is, and kind of adding some new things to it to make it, to disguise it a little bit more. Feel like I'm doing better in that way, and then also just being more comfortable on the field.
Who do you think's been your biggest mentor?
That's hard. I mean, I got a lot of good guys ahead of me. Smoke took me in from the beginning, helped me get real comfortable with the team, and I was really happy with that. Being able to have Diggs and B's and now E in front of me, watching them perform at the level they perform, and it's been a blessing. Again, there's so many guys that's helped me in the NFL, and I just can't name the one because I give props to all of them.
Today, Sean was saying that you have a lot of maturity, that you bring. You're out here early, you're constantly working. Where does that motivation come from for you?
This is always a dream of mine, and I remember my mom always told me, hard work, discipline, and dedication. And I watched her get up early mornings and go to work and be able to take care of us. And I know I want to do the same thing for her and for my brothers and my sisters. So I try to implement that into, my football regimen when it comes to doing things. Get up early in the weight room, get my plays done. Like I said, go look over the plays, take care of my body, be able to be ready for Sunday. What did she do? She worked at a lot of different places, insurance companies, electrical companies, but she'd be gone from, 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. some nights, just constantly working to be able to provide for us.
What do you think about Conor McGregor shouting you out?
That's the best thing ever. That's the king right there. Conor McGregor's, I love his story, the discipline and dedication he had to his sport, to love the craft, and he was definitely different in his time than anybody. And I still feel he's the best to this day, and I give none but love and props to him.
So you just plan to pay homage to him?
Yeah, exactly. Had to. That's my favorite all-time, UFC fighter. He's the best. Just his attitude towards the game, how confident he is, how he speaks things into existence. I mean, it really shows you, when a person believes into themselves, how far it can take them.
All right, that's Gabriel Davis addressing the media after practice today. Steve, how did you learn the plays in your playbook most effectively? We heard Gabriel Davis there say he uses flashcards, name of the play on the front, the diagram of the play on the back. Did you have a similar means?
Flashcards.
What worked for you the best?
What worked for me is walking through it.
So you're a physical learner.
Yeah, I'm a walk-through guy. Also, film study helped some as well for some of the, particularly when you're going against a defense. We can see what the defense did, so you'd know the proper adjustment. If the defense does this, you do that. If you do this and they do that, you do something else, that kind of thing. But, yeah, for me it was a walkthrough thing that really set it in my mind.
That's interesting because scouts always talk when they are describing player prospects. They do that kind of homework to ascertain, is this guy a visual learner who can look at it on the board and take it right to the field? Or are they a physical learner, someone who has to rep it on the field to get it to sink in, so to speak?
Yeah, and it's
interesting. And there's different.
Too.
There's no one best way, but
right. But the understanding,
you know how to coach them. Then,
yeah, coaches having the right understanding help guys pick it up faster. I know that there are times, and I've said it on the show, where these young players who are down the roster, the rookie free agents or whatever, who, it's. If they can go out there, if they're smart enough to watch what's going on ahead of them, watch the number ones and the number twos go, watch them run through the play, hear the play called, watch them run through it, you get coached up and it's like taking a rep yourself. And because it happened to me multiple times during my career where I'd get in a game, in a preseason game, running a play that I'd never run through before myself physically. You got to be ready for that. That's how hard it is to do, right?
Yeah.
So your first rep is live against somebody else in a game that really matters a lot to you if it doesn't matter in the standing in a preseason game.
Now, we also heard him mention the fact that the touchdown play against the Packers was a choice route, essentially.
Right.
So maybe for the layman, explain, or the casual fan, explain what a choice route is for a receiver.
Well, the choice comes after the play is snapped. So you're running up the field, and when you see either the corner or the safety or whatever your key is, whatever player you're going off of, in this case it's probably the safety, Gabe Davis goes up the field. If the safety comes over the top, meaning out over to keep him from going deep, he'll break it to the inside of the field.
Away from the safety.
You break away from the safety, basically. If the safety comes towards you, you go away from him. If he goes outside, you go inside. If he stays inside, you go outside. That kind of thing. It's that simple.
Those are also called option routes.
Usually if there's two words that mean the same thing, they'll give them to different players. The slot receiver, it'll be called a choice, an option route. The outside guy will be called a choice route, that kind of thing. Okay. So you know that when that thing comes up, it's a choice. You know it's not your choice. It's your route would be an option route. The other guy's is called a choice. So that's part of the thing about learning a different position.
Yeah.
So
I always found the choice route description interesting because it's not a choice. You're reacting based on what the safety does. You're not choosing anything.
Right.
The safety's choosing where he wants to go. You just go in the opposite direction because of the choice that guy made. Well, maybe that's why they call it a choice route. The safety made that choice. You're doing this.
Maybe. But a lot of it,
I was fascinated by the origin
is
of that.
Is what you said about verbiage. When you use a word, everybody has to know what it means, or it has to be irrelevant to everybody else in the huddle. So if you say Y choice or Z choice or H choice or Z option, those are different. A Z option and a Z choice are two different things. Sounds kind of the same, but it's different, and it means different things. So if you're coming out of the huddle, there's only certain key words that you catch in the play call because everything else is talking to the other 10 guys in the huddle. So having words like choice and option, and it makes it clear or more clear exactly what they're talking about. Even though the words choice and option mean kind of the same thing, they're completely different, and they mean different things to different guys in the huddle. So, choice route in the case of this route means he gets to choose whether he's going in or out. And if it's an option route, it's different. It means something different.
I think now we're learning why people have to study so much at that position.
Yeah. So it's
because you have to recognize. I mean, it's one thing to be told you have a choice. Now you have to make the right choice based on what you're seeing in the snap of a finger, and then hope your quarterback sees the same thing.
When your choice means, and then there's a choice and an option route, and then there's a read route. The same thing. You read what the defense does. And a choice route, same thing. It's all the same thing, except it applies differently.
Yeah.
So
so it's not an absolute.
A read route.
On the player.
You read the defense, and here's the thing: the quarterback and you are looking at the same guy. When he does this, we're both going to do that. The quarterback's going to throw it over here. That's because you're going to go to the same place the quarterback sees it. So when you read it differently than the quarterback does, you got some problems.
And that's when the broadcaster says, "Oh, there was a miscommunication on that play."
Yes.
Yeah.
He broke off his route, and the quarterback threw it long. That kind of stuff.
Right.
The verbiage, and it's interesting. You don't just go out there and say, "Hey, go over there and do that thing," right? So it used to be, and you'll get this sometimes. Like you got this big time receiver. Like I heard a play call from Steve Young to Jerry Rice one time, NFL Films, and Steve Young calls the route, and it's obviously going to the other side of the formation from Jerry Rice. But on the way out, Young tells Jerry, give me something creative over there against cloud coverage. So meaning if they get cloud coverage, which is kind of an off corner, this route over here may be stymied a little bit. So he's given Jerry Rice, Hall of Famer, best receiver ever, say, give me something creative.
Giving him freedom.
Yes, get open, basically. Basically saying, just do that thing that you do. and if everything hits the fan,
I have something
got you
to do.
I'll find you. And that's kind of, because on mostly the play goes as planned, Jerry's an afterthought, which for a number one receiver is not in place you want to be. So Steve Young throws him a bone and says, hey, give me something creative. Just to keep him interested.
Yeah.
So he doesn't just stand over there and watch.
Yeah.
So it's a complex group, right? So, that's why quarterbacks are Hall of Famers and not.
And a rarity.
Steve Young, in a play that doesn't involve his number one receiver, massages his number one receiver saying, hey, I'm not forgetting about you, which keeps him interested in a play where he's not involved.
So he doesn't get his teeth knocked out if everything hits the fan.
Right.
There's incentive.
There's that, too.
There's incentive
that
to
too.
keep his number one receiver interested. Ah, boy. The most scripted game in the world can somehow be loose and free-flowing as well in some instances.
Some would say it only becomes interesting when everything hits the fan.
That's right. Break time for us. When we come back, we'll get to more of your comments on the tweet sheet as we want to know which player's role are you most curious about going into the regular season, because there's a handful of players on this roster whose roles we may not know completely just yet. Some are multifaceted. Which one are you most interested in seeing come week one? We'll get some of your comments next here on One Bills Live, presented by Kaleida Health. It's Buffalo Bills Radio. Connect Life and the Buffalo Bills are putting out the call for blood donors, all presenting donors at a Connect Life blood drive from September 1st to September 30th. Will be entered to win one of 10 framed Oxford pennants, autographed by a Bills player, in addition to receiving a mini pennant automatically, seen here on the graphic that our MSG viewers are seeing. Make an appointment by visiting connectlifegiveblood.org or call 716-529-4270. Walk-ins are also welcome. So that's your opportunity to give blood and maybe win a prize in the process. Every donor, though, gets one of those mini pennants, which we have displayed on our desk here for our MSG viewers to see. You get that one automatically, and then you're entered for a chance to win an autograph pennant from a Bills player, framed and everything. Hang it right in your man cave. So get on that. Donate blood if you are qualified to do so. Wanted to get back to the tweet sheet as we were asking you fine folks whose role on the Bills are you most curious about come the regular season. We've got some players filling some multifaceted roles. We got some newcomers, and we are interested in seeing what those roles are. Emmanuel Sanders, for example, Steve, which you mentioned before we even got on the air. After seeing what he did in the Green Bay Packers game, you have to be excited about what his role is going to look like going forward in the scope of this offense. So there are plenty of choices to choose from, people. Brandt, however, is saying it's Gilliam for me. With his position flexibility, it'll be interesting how Dable will use him and where he will line up during games, how much motion he will have with him, starting him in a fullback spot, then putting him in motion to the end of the line to block or go out for a pass. It intrigues me.
Yes, I can get along. I can get on board with that. I think that his maybe we're overthinking it a little bit because there's only two real tight ends on the field. He's one of the four running backs that they'll probably have active. Maybe all five will be active. I kind of doubt that. Or maybe they will be because of the tight end situation.
Mm-hmm.
But it's intriguing as to what it's going to look like, and I think more so in the percentage of plays that the ball is going to be thrown and the percentage it's going to be run. I think it's maybe, and I'm feeling it, this knee-jerk reaction I'm having. It's like maybe it's going to go to 65-35 this year.
Pass to run. Good.
It was 60-40 or 61-39. That's very heavy. I keep thinking back to the 90s and the 80s early 90s when the Houston Oilers made that full-blown commitment to go run and shoot.
Mouse Davis.
And they got to the playoffs, and they were scoring a ton of points on people, and they were tough to beat. But when it came time back then, it came time in games where you had to line up and run the ball. And they didn't have any tight ends.
Yeah.
So it was an issue for them. They couldn't overcome. So it'll be interesting. If that same thing is going to happen to the Bills if they do go that high in their ratios, run to pass to run.
Yeah, I'm going to see if I have time to look up who had the highest passing percentage based on play calls.
You probably get a one-off season.
I know the Bills
somebody.
were 61-39 last year, pass to run. I think the Chiefs were up there, which, wouldn't surprise you, along with some other teams like Arizona.
I'd like to see, all time, if there was a team that
chucked it that much.
That chucked it a lot.
Yeah.
And I think
the Oilers would
be up there, I think.
Yeah, they would.
Maybe
there's no question. Greatest show on turf team.
Yeah, you'd
probably
think
be
that
up
too,
there.
Yeah. But they had Marshall Faulk as well.
Yeah, they threw to him a lot though out of the backfield.
Yeah, he was an all timer. That's interesting to me, and I don't know where to. Maybe you know where to look for that kind of stuff.
I'll see if I can dig it up here. Nick on the tweet sheet says, I want to see what we do with Rousseau. I came into this season thinking he'd be a developing player who we'd gradually introduce into the lineup, but after the preseason, he looks like he's ready to start and rush the passer every day. Yeah, I mean, if the starting lineup against the Packers is any indication, Steve, I mean, Rousseau started at left defensive end against them. Right. With Jerry on the other side and Ed Oliver and Star Latulele in the middle. And that could be your starting front four on September 12th.
I mean, not that it's a big deal because,
they rotate a lot.
They rotate. But I think it's interesting to think about how is he going to play a ton? Are they that impressed with him?
I think he's going to play a good amount. I really do. I think once he convinced them he was capable of setting the edge and playing the run effectively with his length, that gave them the green light to say, oh, we don't just have to bring him out on the field when it's 3rd, 8, 9, or 10.
Think about it. They wouldn't be think what they did with AJ Epinesa last year. He didn't play. He didn't even suit up for the first 2 games.
Yeah.
So it's not like they feel obligated.
No.
They don't care what it looks like. And if he comes out there and steps on the field week 1, then, and even as much progress as we've seen from A.J. Epinesa, what's that say? Yeah. How far Rousseau's come and how much better Epinesa's gotten, and Rousseau's ahead of him already. He can't feel like he's reached full potential in week 1 of his rookie season.
Yeah.
So the upside on Rousseau goes through the roof, much like it did for Josh Allen if you could hang in there with him for the first couple of years. I mean, it's really fun to think about.
Yeah.
Because
I think he's going to play a lot more than A.J. Epinesa did as a rookie. I really do.
I do too.
Yeah.
I do too. And I think A.J. Epinesa's going to...
He's going to play a lot too.
Yeah.
They got some horses, man. They got some horses.
Yeah, they do.
All right, we have to take a break here, but when we return, we're going to hear from Bills cornerback Levi Wallace, who will undoubtedly be asked for his thoughts on the CB2 competition, which is still ongoing, according to head coach Sean McDermott. And we also have, coming up at the bottom of the hour, the latest installment of Tasker's Teammate. We'll see if Steve can guess which teammate we're describing with the cryptic clues that we provide every single week. It's all coming up later here on One Bills Live, presented by Kaleida Health. It's Buffalo Bills Radio.
And it's Steve Tasker who has been all over the field.
Kind of unique. He was kind of a dual-role player for you.
Steve!
A balloon.
Steve! A blimp? We're not even in the stratosphere of normalcy here. All right, hour number 3. And it's time to go back out to the sidelines where Levi Wallace addressed the media after practice. Still in the throes of a competition for the CB2 spot, according to head coach Sean McDermott. So here is the fourth-year cornerback, Levi Wallace, addressing the media.
Yeah, my hip, old age, honestly. No, I'm just messing. I feel better, though. I feel better. It was, I don't know the medical term, but it needs to heal. And it feels better, a lot better. I mean, the training staff's done a great job. So I'm moving back how I was before. Still a little sore, but like I said, I'm not 18 anymore. Not like I used to. I just get up and I'm feeling it now. Used to get up and run. But, yeah, I feel a lot better. Thanks for asking.
The competition, it's been a healthy one. How do you feel about it as you go into the Steelers game? You feel like you've got it locked down, at least for now?
Listen, I'm out there just trying to make plays. I don't know anything about competition. It's a question for Leslie and Sean. I'm just out there trying to do the best I can for my team.
We've asked you a million times the same questions for years. I know you're tired of them, but you just seem so comfortable with competition. How does one and how do you become comfortable in that setting?
I think just in this league, that just comes with the job. I mean, football is competing. So if you don't want to compete, you shouldn't be in the league. And that's just my mindset. I want to be the best. I want to be better than T. White, to be honest. I mean, he's like I said once before, that he's one of the best corners I've ever seen play, and he pushes me each and every day. So that's my goal.
That might be the league, but you go off on the side every day with Trey and with George and Micah. No one's ever asking them questions about how you're going to fight off the rookie that's in this year or this new guy they signed. Like John said, the question we've been asking you every year. Do you ever sit there and wonder, what it would be like to be that guy, to not have to do this and answer this question every year?
I think you guys are going to ask the questions you want to ask regardless. So it doesn't really bother me. I don't have any control over the questions you guys ask. I just answer them as best as I can.
Even separate questions, though, to be in a position where, no one's questioning your starting position. No one's questioning the job. No one's looking at Trey White and thinking that guy might lose his job.
That's your prerogative. I don't think that, And like I said, go back to the competition. They might not think that they have to compete for their jobs, but they have to compete against me in everything. I mean, that's in basketball, golf, hockey. I mean, I'm just a competitor regardless. And I think if you ask those guys the same question, I think we've all been through trials at some point of our lives. Maybe now they're not getting those questions, but I guarantee maybe once before they were getting those questions. So that just comes with the job, with the territory.
Do you think this defense needs to be better than it was last year? I mean, probably, maybe in several areas. You think it needs to be better this year than last year?
I think we just need to execute, a little bit better. I think it comes down to players making plays, and I think me personally, I didn't make enough plays, and I can only speak for myself. So that's what I've focused on this training camp, just being the best version that I can for myself, for my team, and just allowing myself to play a little bit more freer. So it's not about defense as a whole. I can't answer that question. I'm not the whole defense. I'm just talking from my perspective only.
Was it difficult last year for you guys? After 2019, you guys were really good, especially in pass defense. Was it tough the first half of the year? I mean, this offense was putting up a lot of points, so the other team was always in pass mode, but you guys were giving up a lot of points and a lot of yards the first half. Was that difficult to go through?
I think it was just an adjustment. Like you said, years past, I don't think we've ever put up that many points that fast before. And so we had to adjust our mindset and our play set. Just going up on teams, making them throw the ball as fast as they did. Where before we had going against a lot of offenses that were much more balanced with running and passing. So we had to adjust for sure. But I think that's just building on to this year so we can be back balanced again.
Levi, is it nice knowing you've had some success against the Steelers and knowing that that's the team you get to open against?
I think, you can't really bother yourself on who you've played in the past. They're different coordinators, different players on the team. To be honest, I haven't even looked at the Steelers yet. So I have to go back and look at their preseason games and see how they're attacking defenses so far. But year to year, things change. And I think just as well as I have a book on them and what I think they would like to do, I'm sure they have some plays that they want to beat on the defense as well. So and make up for the mistakes that they made last year. And we want to correct the mistakes we made as well.
Levi, how unique is it in special do you think it is to be back again with Trey and with Micah and Jordan? That group really hasn't changed over the last few years. I mean, so as a corner who's been around here for a few seasons, I mean, how nice is it to know that group doesn't change up frequently?
Yeah, I think, Maddie, it's special. It's unheard of, I think, for a group of DBs to be together this long. Those guys are my brothers, and we've been through just outside of football, just life going together. And so that's been real special to me. Micah and Poyer, year 9 now, and they've seen so much. And I think just the chemistry that we all have together has been just tremendous on and off the field. And I think that just ties back into what I was saying. Like, we're brothers, but we also compete in cornhole and golf and basketball. And I told Micah he'll never beat me again in anything. It doesn't matter, paper, rock, scissors. That's just who we are. We're like brothers. We're like family. We pick on each other and laugh and joke and cry and share each other's pain. So even with Taryn, me and him came in together. And I met him at the Senior Bowl. And it's just been great just getting to know him and his family as well. So it's real special, and I have a real special bond with those guys.
Has it gotten to the point where you kind of know, where Mike is going to be, where everybody's going to be in the defensive backfield on any certain play, given how familiar you guys are with each other?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's what makes it easy. And it's just gotten easier and easier each and every year, just knowing that those guys are going to be where they say they're at. Vice versa, they can trust me where I'm going to be where I say I'm at. And it's easy just to talk to those guys and go on the sideline and make adjustments that some guys it takes 5 minutes, 10 minutes to get things going. And with us, there's so much trust. We say what we see, and then we keep it moving and make those adjustments so fast. So it's been great being a part of the secondary.
How different is that from when you first stepped into that role? I mean, if you recall back, a few years back.
Like I said, it's developed over time, and it's just gotten stronger each and every year. I mean, I came in rookie year, maybe week 9, week 10 maybe, and when I first met Jordan and Micah, I didn't know what to expect. I'd come in and seeing their pictures all over the place, and I was like, man, these guys are some bullies. Like, they're not even going to like me. And they're such nice, great men on and off the field. So it's kind of like a brother relationship.
Levi, as an undrafted free agent, I know I've talked to guys before, so it's kind of like a club you're in, and once you kind of make it from that spot, it's a thing. For you, every year you make a roster, there's still a sense of pride about being that guy and overcoming whatever odds that come with that to continue to have success in this league? Yeah,
I think we do a great job. We just never take anything for granted. I think just as a whole group, not just the undrafted guys, but it's impressive just to make a roster no matter what round. You got guys who have been cut second, third round, all the way to undrafted. You never know, and you never take it for granted. The opportunities that you have to make a roster, and each and every day I wake up grateful, and I try to leave everything I can on the field.
I'm joking here, but you talked about how you thought these guys were bullies. Now you're bullying them back when it comes to your comments about cornhole or whatever.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Back 4 years ago.
Yeah. To be honest, I didn't even know. It was just a you know what I mean? Like, I'm just walking in. I'm like, dang, there might be buttholes. I don't even know Micah and Jordan, and they kind of felt disrespected because I didn't know them when I kind of came in, and. But now I think back, and I remember Poyer had a star under himself in NCAA way back when, and I was like, oh yeah, that was you. But they're complete opposite of that. You have to talk to them. I mean, they're some of the best men that I know on this planet. So, but it also doesn't change the fact that they can't beat me at basketball. So.
All right, so that's Levi Wallace, kind of sharing a little bit behind the curtain inside the locker room of what the relationship is like between that secondary, which is now going on its 4th year of being together as a primary quartet, or actually a quintet if you think about it, because Taron Johnson and Levi came in the same year in 18, and this group has been together for each of the last 18, 19, 20, 4 seasons. So the 5th season. Holy cow. That's crazy. That kind of continuity is very rare. And, could it change? Yes, because Taron Johnson and Levi Wallace both in the final years of their respective contracts. So come 22, it could change. Who knows? But right now, it's keep on keeping on with the group that they've had. And Boyer and Hyde both signed extensions over the last calendar year, as did Tre'Davious White. So at least 60% of that quintet is going to stay here beyond this season.
Right.
And then we'll see how Levi and Taryn play and see if they play themselves into a new contract to stay here, or if they play so well, they get a lucrative contract somewhere else.
Right. And one of the reasons, too, and it raised my eyebrows, we've talked about it before, they've got 4 guys on the practice squad that are coming up. You got to be ready for that. You can't have 40% of your secondary depart after this season, no matter how good or bad this season is, and not have somebody in the stable, ready to go.
Steelers have been very good with that model. They'll have young guys that are either A, on the roster, but inactive most weeks for their first year, maybe even their second year. But by their third year, they're ready to step into a role. I mean, how many times have we seen them do that at the receiver position?
Right.
I mean, like Plaxico Burress goes out the door, signs a big lucrative contract extension. Oh, who's this Antonio Brown guy? Santonio Holmes,
right?
Super Bowl MVP, signs a big contract somewhere else. He's out the door.
Mike Wallace comes
in. And Mike Wallace signs somewhere else. And then somebody, it's the next, Juju Smith-Schuster walks in. It's like they just have another guy in the pipeline who's ready to step into a major role.
I'll say this, though, and I know that they're, Bills fans have no plus or minus feelings about Ben Roethlisberger, but that guy makes good receivers.
Well, Josh might be entering that category as well.
Yeah, I've said it, and a lot of this stuff says, hey, Steph Diggs made Josh Allen. And certainly it's a symbiotic relationship where both guys help the other, but I'm telling you what, the guy pulling the trigger is the hard guy to find. And you can say whatever you want about it, building around him and giving him a chance to be successful. Once the guy gets on his feet, receivers clamor to play for guys like that.
Yeah.
It's not vice versa.
Well,
quarterbacks will say, yeah, like this guy, like that guy, like that. But there's a whole range of, even on this team, there's 3 or 4 guys a quarterback would love to play with. There's not too many guys like the one, like Aaron Rodgers, Pat Mahomes, and Josh Allen's running around. But Ben Roethlisberger was like that.
Yeah.
And and maybe not so much now that he's, 39. But I'll tell you what, that guy could throw it, and guys wanted to play there, and guys who played there were very, very good.
And the Bills have that here now. Emmanuel Sanders, who played with Ben Roethlisberger, played with Peyton Manning, played with Drew Brees, chose to sign here.
And was talking.
If that's not an endorsement, I don't know what.
He was talking this guy up too. So, yeah, it's true. And so I get it too. There's a little of it where Steph Diggs helped Josh Allen take that step forward.
Yeah.
No question he did. But I'm telling you what, Josh Allen's taken a big step forward last year with or without Steph.
Yeah.
I mean, Steph helped him and it was great. But man, oh man, you think Steph Diggs would have had that year with Kirk Cousins? He was good. He was okay with Kirk Cousins, but he wasn't number one.
He wasn't 127 receptions, 1,500 yards.
He wasn't number one in the league in both those categories with Kirk Cousins.
Right. Yeah. There's another endorsement.
A little bit of a chicken and egg kind of thing there, but the quarterback is the hard guy to find.
We have a programming reminder we wanted to pass along to you in case you hadn't heard the news. The show is off for the Labor Day holiday on Monday, and then when we come back on Tuesday, September 7th, One Bills Live will move to a 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. time slot, airing live on WGR 550, MSG, and the Bills app. It's part of a new agreement with Odyssey and WGR, so be sure to make a note of that on your calendars. We should tell you, though, after Bills games on Sunday, we will have a full 3-hour show, noon to 3, as the instigators, who are moving from noon to 1, will have the day off on Bills game day Mondays. So still 3 hours the day after Bills Sunday games, but starting on Tuesday, September 7th, we move from 1 to 3 p.m., a 2-hour program, but we can still be found in all the same places. So that's that. We want to get back to the tweet sheet, which is brought to you by Corrigan Moving Systems, and I believe we were up to let me see here. Bill's chick. And she voted other in terms of what role are you most curious about come the regular season in terms of players. And she voted other. The choices were Reggie Gilliam, I believe it was Isaiah McKenzie, and Boogie Basham. And Bill's chick voted other. I am curious how many targets Emmanuel Sanders will get. And he's a good choice for the other category. He's the newest. He's the new addition to an offense that has largely stayed the same in terms of the people manning the roster. So, yeah, Emmanuel Sanders is probably the newest X factor to the passing attack.
If there's one thing that may be missing from this offense, it is a guy on the outside who can scoot fast. All these guys are pro speed. They're all faster than anybody you'll ever meet today in your daily life.
Chance of that.
Yeah, they're way faster than anybody you're going to cross paths with
Unless
today.
you have a personal relationship with Usain Bolt.
Right. But at the NFL level, they don't have any of those guys like a Tyreek Hill or even a John Brown that they had last year. But what they do have are guys that know how to get open and a quarterback that can deliver it. I don't think that'll mean fewer big plays. I think it might mean more big plays. This club's going to air it out, no question. But it's going to be because the defense doesn't know who to guard.
Yeah. Seth says on the tweet sheet, I'm curious about F.A. Obata. Will we see him rush from the interior with Ed or Boogie on obvious passing downs? I wonder how much he will be used as an outside rusher. Something tells me not a whole lot. Special teams too? ? I will say this, Steve. I know I've commented on this. He is not an explosive burst player off the ball, which to me, going along Seth's line of questioning, makes me think he might be a guy that kicks inside more than some of the others.
He's big enough for it.
And long enough.
He's really big. I think it'll depend on whether he can assimilate the techniques inside that are very different from outside. He's big enough he's going to have to hold his ground. You know, when you come off and there's two guys that come in and try and push you, if you have the ability not to be pushed, that's basically a prerequisite for doing that job. He's athlete enough. We'll see. But it comes down to his ability to play the techniques down inside that are different than outside.
Correct. And we saw him line up in both places. I just don't know if he offers the same juice, suddenness, burst off the edge as some of the other guys that are manning the defensive end position right now. So you say, okay, well then what should his role be? And maybe kicking down inside in a situational role might be what's best for him this fall. Robert chose other. I hope Dawson Knox can have a more consistent year and quiet all the naysayers out there who say he's no good. And on social media, there is a fair number of naysayers, Steve.
Every player's got them.
Yeah.
They're
all
fine.
Obsessed with his catch rate and all of those analytic
I mean,
numbers and everything.
Hey, he earned his reputation, too. I mean, just like he's going to have to earn his way out of it. So, and I've said that I think this is going to be his year.
Yeah, you've been high on him since the spring.
And I think, too, Sweeney is the other tight end on the roster. There's a guy that we don't know really what he's capable of doing because he's had a hard time staying healthy.
He does a little bit of everything, Sweeney.
Sweeney's big.
We just don't know to what degree he can excel at all of those things because we haven't seen enough of him.
Sweeney's got those traits that the Bills have drafted over the last couple of years.
6'6".
He's really tall, really heavy. And I think he would probably have been a much bigger contributor had he not been COVID, injured, all of that stuff. It's just been it's been the hallmark of his career thus far in his first 3 years. The guy just can't get on the field health-wise. If he does, he's got some physical traits, no question about it. But I think this year, for the experience he has and the timing of it, of where he is in his career, I think Knox is poised for a breakout. He may not. He may continue to struggle
Well,
or
I
not
think
excel, but I don't think he will. I think he'll get better.
Yeah, I think one of the reasons people are wondering if he's ever going to break out is because it seems like, at least in the passing game, the tight end isn't quite an afterthought, but not far from that. Now, if he can prove he can make more plays, maybe he becomes a more crucial component of the passing game. If you're the guy making the plays, they're going to keep coming to you.
It's rare that in this offense last year that we see the tight end being the one option, sometimes the two option, more usually the third or fourth option. I mean, you're just not calling a play where the tight end is the guy when you got Steph Diggs.
I think he only had 30-something targets last year.
Right. So, and he caught, how many?
25, 30
25
balls.
of those, yeah. So I think he caught average 2.5 catches for every 4 targets he got, which is what he was per game. So, I think he's got to improve on that, no question. And I think you got to catch, you got to be good enough to catch 5 out of 6, not 2.5 out of 4.
Yeah. We'll see. It's a big we'll see. Break time for us here. When we come back, the latest installment of Tasker's Teammate. We'll see if Steve, from a series of cryptic and vague clues, can guess which former teammate of his we are describing. We'll do that next here on One Bills Live, presented by Kaleida Health. It's Buffalo Bills Radio. All right, ladies and germs, it is that time of the show. It's time for another installment of Tasker's Teammate, brought to you by Wegmans Meals to Go, delicious meals delivered. Download the Wegmans app today. You got your tinfoil hat on, Steve?
I do.
Okay. Clue number 1. Born in Troy, Ohio, I was a standout high school player on a Covington high school team that won the state title in 1973, allowing just 24 points the entire season. My exploits would earn me a scholarship opportunity at Ohio State, where I played my college ball with my brother, Terry.
Wow, I should know this.
It's a lot of clues in the first clue. I was gifting
Troy,
you.
Ohio. Played with his brother, Terry, who I should probably know. Ohio State. Marlon Kerner.
It is not Marlon Kerner. Clue number 2.
Wait.
I enjoyed a good deal of success with the Buckeyes, a team captain my senior season, and a center on our offensive line. We finished 7-4, appeared in the Gator Bowl against Clemson, where head coach Woody Hayes infamously punched a Clemson player, ending his career.
Oh, gee, many crickets. Tim Vogler.
Bam, bam, thank you, ma'am. Steve Tasker nailing Tim Vogler down. Well done, Steve. We don't have Tim with us, unfortunately.
Tim
Couldn't
Vogler.
get a hold of him.
You know why I remember that? Because I remember hearing Tim tell the story about Woody jacking a guy up.
Sacking the
I saw it, yeah. I mean, everybody saw it.
Yeah, socked him. Well, he grabbed him, and then he punched him, right?
Yeah. We grabbed him, punched him up
Pulled
into
him
the
right
neck.
off the side of the
And to his credit, after the game, the kid said, I didn't feel anything. I was, what am I going to do? I got all like equipment on. What are you talking about? He tried to blow it over, not knowing that it was seen by 37 million Americans on live television, and Keith Jackson was in the booth.
Oh, he punched him right on the sideline.
Actually, he didn't see it either.
Nelly.
Keith Jackson didn't see it either. I think it was Keith Jackson, but he didn't know.
Probably was.
He didn't see it because, you're calling play-by-play and you're making the thing. You're looking at your next thing you're going to talk about. He's down looking at his boards, going to talk about whatever. He just missed the punch. And,
Steve, you were talking about the number of undrafted players on NFL rosters. Tim Vogler, too. An undrafted player signed by the Bills, played a reserve role on the offensive line for his first 6 seasons.
Had a twin brother.
Before becoming a full-time starter in 1985. Yeah, his brother was a linebacker for Ohio State.
Mm-hmm.
Played center in college, but his primary position here with the Bills was guard. 4-year starter. And then he tore his ACL
Right.
trying to cover an interception of all things.
It
just
New
got
England.
twisted up
I
in a
think it was
pile.
I think it was in New England. Yeah, it came down on it. Yeah,
Got twisted up in a
Maybe.
pile, suffered an ACL knee injury in the '88 season, cost him a chance to be a part of the playoff run to
right.
the AFC title game against the Bengals in Cincinnati, which was his hometown. That
Covington,
sucks.
yeah.
That sucks. Then won the team's Ed Block Courage Award, coming back from the knee injury, but just was not the same player. And the team put him on PUP in '89, never played a down in the NFL again. Tough way to end your career.
It's never good. And you hear about guys going through that and not wanting to end their career like that, and sometimes you have no choice. Yeah.
Jersey number 65 also won the Ralph C. Wilson Distinguished Service Award.
Was a member
in
of the
1990
game day crew after he retired. He was in charge. The league hired him to come in on game days. You'd see him on the sidelines, and he had a clipboard. He'd be walking up and down in the pregame. He was the uniform police.
Yeah.
He would make sure his socks are down, his socks are down. He's got to tuck that shirt in. He's got the wrong colored bands.
Wearing illegal shoes.
Illegal shoes, all that stuff. Now, it's weird now because guys will do that during the warm-ups, and then for the games, they'll put their stuff on like they're supposed
Properly.
to. Properly, yes. In the league's eyes, properly.
So how do you remember Tim telling the Woody Hayes punch story? Like, are there any extra layers to it that are unknown to people that just watched it on TV?
I do not remember the details of it. All we know, though, it was his final game.
Correct.
Turned into his final game.
Yes, whether he knew it or not at the moment.
Right. Then he was the AD and all that. I mean, he was there for years longer than that, but it's an unfortunate way to go.
So Tim Vogler, the latest Taskers teammate. Steve got it in 2 clues, although I kind of layered in multiple clues within a clue for you. I was gifting you that one.
That I appreciate that.
So
Votron, yeah.
Oh, was that his nickname?
That's what I called him.
Votron.
I don't think he.
Why did you call him?
Because it was kind of like Megatron, Votron, kind of.
Yeah, there was a cartoon character I believe called Voltron. But you called him Votron because of his last name.
Right.
That's kind of clever. Were you the only one that used that?
Yeah, probably.
It didn't take with everybody else in the locker room, did
Everybody probably thought I was an idiot. Nobody listened to me anyway. I was like a voice in the wilderness.
Well, you were still a young player on the team at that time because his career was kind of coming to an end and yours was just getting started.
88 was a 12-4 year, and when I'd went to my first Pro Bowl the year before that. So, yeah.
Yeah. So, anyway, good job on that. That is the latest installment of Tasker's Teammate. We want to wrap things up with the tweet sheet here, as we've been asking you all day today, whose role are you most curious about come the regular season? And Robert said, we did Robert already. JT says, I'm going with Reggie Gilliam. I think they're going to play him in flex positions. He'll play tight end and fullback, and I'm glad we kept him. Also interested in Breida's role. I think he will be catching screens and getting outside runs. Also interested in seeing what downs and situations they play Kumaro. Now, Breida's an interesting one, Steve, because with McKenzie out of the lineup this past week against the Packers, we saw him run a jet sweep, much the way McKenzie does. And talking to some of the players, the general consensus is Breida is the fastest athlete on the entire roster.
And that if that's coming from the defensive guys, which it is, that says something because speed is a fear factor for defenders. They got to get in position and outman him really than outrun the guy. So if they're saying that, and believe me, if they're saying it, the coaches are saying it too. So
I did find it interesting, Steve, that we saw a number of different screenplays in the Packers game, some working with greater efficiency than others. There were some screenplays that looked promising. There were some other screenplays that at least it was evident to me that it needs some work with the timing, execution. Some took too long to develop. Some were capably sniffed out by the Packers defense, but there are some there that need repping, shall we say, if they're going to turn to them during the regular season.
Yeah, they have never, or I say never, but they don't run screen passes that well or that often.
A great deal of success with those.
And I think
what is the culprit behind that usually? Mobility of your linemen?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what I was just going to say. It's the their ability of the guards and tackles to get out in front of it. Tackles not so much; it's got to be your guards.
I think Morse does a good job of getting out in front.
Yeah, it's the two. It's Ford, Feliciano, Butker, Brian Winters last year.
Yeah.
It'll be Jack Anderson and company this year behind those guys and whoever, the three. Those guys have to be able to get out and run and fast.
And then what about Kumaro? Where does he fit here? He's deep on the depth chart at receiver.
You may not see him catching balls. You're going to see him covering kicks.
Yeah, special teams, and then
they'll probably give him shots here and there when they're in a drive, or if they do go a lot of 4 wide. Yeah, you'll see him rotate in.
Red zone package,
yes. Maybe. Although when you get to the red zone, if you're going to go with size, you can bet Knox and Sweeney will be in there.
Well, here's my argument for Kumaro in the red zone. Not only because of his height, and you can throw him a jump ball, but also for blocking if Josh runs the ball. You could split Kumaro out wide, and then you run some read option play, and if Josh is running, I kind of like having Kumaro out on the edge blocking for him.
More so than Diggs, yeah.
Or McKenzie.
Or Cole Beasley, too. So, yeah, you're right. That's a plus as well. But you can't do that a lot. It'd become predictable.
Right.
Kumaro earned his way onto the roster by being good enough or better than the guys that aren't there. I don't know that he's better than Gabe Davis, Emmanuel Sanders, Cole Beasley, Steph Diggs. But if he's active, he's up, and he's ready, and they got a drive going, and they're going 2 minutes, or they go no huddle, and they mess with the pace of the thing, and they want to run guys in and out, Kumaro's on the field, and you can bet he'll get an opportunity. Yeah. Josh will see him. So, and they may call his number just for the fact that he's fresh. So, yeah, I think that's his role. His role is a backup to the top 4 guys and to play special teams. And if they have a package or situation where they think he's a better matchup, yeah, that's when he'll get in the game.
All right, good discussion on these impending roster roles for some multifaceted players and others that you guys found interesting. Thanks for all your participation on the tweet sheet today. We take a break here and come back with what we have learned from today's show. That's next here on One Bills Live, presented by Kaleida Health. It's Buffalo Bills Radio. Welcome back. Time to close up a Thursday edition of One Bills Live with what we have learned from today's show. And I think we learned there are some intriguing players on Buffalo's roster whose roles have yet to be determined, but are clearly piquing the curiosity of Bills fans. Chief among them, Reggie Gilliam, Steve.
Yeah. I think it's exacerbated the interest because of the fact there's no tight ends in front of him to cushion his need to be used in a different way than a fullback would be used.
People are openly wondering, what the heck is this going to look like?
I think it's kind of fun now because if you and I sit here, and I've said it a million times, we chew this stuff up every day in every which situation. We don't know. People who watch our show, us, we do this every day. Bills fans who watch no other team except this one, what's this going to look like?
And you know who's the happiest about that? Brian Dable.
Exactly. And I'm not saying
but you don't know.
I'm not saying
I am
you need
very happy about that.
And this doesn't even have, I'm not even saying everybody's got, tinfoil hats on. It's probably all contrived. They don't want anybody to know. Yep. I think and like I say, it comes into hot question because of the fact they only got 2 tight ends. And Gilliam was a tight end last year, but now he's not. He's a 41. He's number 41. He's listed as a fullback.
He's a chameleon, Steve.
It's like, what does this mean?
What does it mean?
What does it all mean? I think it's fascinating.
Reggie the chameleon.
And here's
Gilliam.
the thing, too. Last year, the Bills were ahead of the curve going 4 wide. I think more teams are going to do that this year. We've seen too many good wide receivers flood into the league over the last 3 drafts not to see it start to take shape. Yeah. And I think the Bills were ahead of the curve. Maybe they're ahead of the curve in this respect.
Going in a different direction.
Maybe.
Steve is off tomorrow. Filling in for him from ESPN Sports Center with me is certified Bills fan Kevin Connors will join me on the show. Drew Cerza, the Wing King, and NFL Network analyst Danielle Jeremiah. Full show on Friday. We'll see you at noon tomorrow.